Section 3.7, equations of lines in the coordinate plane. Objective to write and graph linear equations. Little definition to start out with, slope. The abbreviation for slope is the small m. It's the ratio of the vertical change to the horizontal change, and it's the same thing as saying rise over run. The formula is listed here, and again, this formula is on the formula sheet. You just have to know how to use it. The only part of the formula that's on there, though, is this part. The rise over run part, then you would have to know in order to use it. So how does the formula work? When you're looking at it, the rise is the difference of the y values, which kind of makes sense because the y-axis is the vertical axis. The run is the difference of the x coordinates, which is the horizontal axis, which is also the x-axis. So it does make sense. Notice when you're looking at the formula, though, it uses one from each ordered pair. You don't take the x and the y from each ordered pair and have one on the top and one on the bottom. Notice that each part takes one from each. So the y values are on the top because that's the rise, and the x values are on the bottom. That is the run. There could be a second formula also. I didn't put it on the formula sheet, but I just want you to know you can switch these around, but you have to switch both. So I'm going to put or. You could do y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. If you like to subtract in the right order, like the first one minus the second one, that works, but you do have to do both of them. Okay, so this one has a variety of lines in here, and they want us to find the slope of B. Okay, so I'm going to put my work up here. So first we have to find line B. It is this one right here. Okay, so it's the red one. It's going down. Notice how they gave us two ordered pairs. I'm going to have you do the formula, but I'm also going to show you how an easy way to do it on graph paper is. So for me, if it's on graph paper already, just use it. But I'm going to show you both. So my two ordered pairs are negative 1, 2. And 4, negative 2. Now, you can name them if you want to. It's not necessary, but I'm going to put little names below them. I'm going to call this x1, y1, x2, y2. When you're following along with the formula then, you'll be able to see where they're coming from. So again, here's the formula. I'm going to subtract the first one from the second one. So here's my slope. Y2 is negative 2. I'm going to subtract y1, which is also 2. Then I go back to the x2, which is 4, and I subtract the x1, which is a negative 1 this time, and that will just change the sign. So my number is negative 4 on the top and 5 on the bottom. So my slope is negative 4 over 5. Don't put these in decimal form. They have to be fractions, so it looks like rise over run. Now, let me show you another way that's super, super easy, and I do this every time the graph is given. So I'm going to draw a triangle using the 2 points they gave. So I'm going to go down until I can go across to get to the point. Okay, and you can draw the triangle to the right and down, or down and to the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4. So notice the rise is 4. That's what we got. The run is 5. That's what we got. So as long as you do the vertical part first, if you have already counted the squares, just write it down. The only other thing you need to know is when the line goes down to the right, it is negative. So I would have to put a negative in there. So for this one, did you finish?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I ran out of room, so I had to do this on that, and I did it on my homework assignment.
Okay. Can you shoot me a picture of this?
Yep.
Or we'll get a copy of your homework after school?
Okay.
Let's do that. Just leave it and I'll get a copy for you. Okay, so my slope from the picture was 4/5, which we got already, but we also have to know it is going down from the left like this. When that happens, you have to add the negative in there. So the only downfall with actually doing this on graph paper is you still have to note, is it a positive slope or is it a negative? And we just really haven't learned that yet. So we're going to learn it here just in probably 2 or 3 minutes. So graphing is great, but you do have to do the sign. The formula takes care of the sign for you, so you kind of have to pick which one you kind of like better. What is the slope of line D? That's this one. So it's a vertical line going straight up and down. Now, when you're looking at that, they did give us a couple of points. They gave us 1 point. There's another point on that line as well. So let's look at those. They are 4, 0, and 4, -2. Now, what if they gave you a vertical line, but they didn't give you any points? Couldn't you come up with your own 2 points that you wanted to use? Yeah, you could just pick whichever 2 points on the line you want to do. So I'm going to do the slope formula first. y2 is -2, y1 is 0. So -2 minus 0 over 4 minus 4. Now, can I divide numbers by 0? No, so that means this is the one that anytime you get a 0 underneath, it's an undefined slope. Undefined slope and 0 slope are not the same thing. If you put UND slope or just UND, I'll know that you mean undefined, okay? So I'll do that. Okay, so anytime you divide by 0, you cannot do that. That means there isn't one. So vertical lines are always undefined. Let's do graphing method, just like we have it. I'm going to pick 2 points up here, though, so I can actually see them. Let's say I picked those 2 points. The distance between those two is 2, right? Is that the rise or the run? So the top number is 2, but it doesn't go anywhere. So that would mean the bottom number would be a 0, and that would still give you an undefined slope. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily matter, still if you use the graphing method or not. If they say formula, do it though, just to get some practice, because they're not always graphable. What if I gave you the ordered pair 100, -150? Obviously, you don't want to graph that on an ordered pair. Graph it as an ordered pair. You'd want to use the formula instead. If there's graph paper available, you certainly can use graph paper. Okay, so here are the pictures. Write these down somewhere, especially just for the quiz on Thursday. If you use the picture, these are the pictures that you need to go by. So if it goes up from the left, it's a positive slope, just like you're reading a book. So from left to right, it goes up, that means positive. From left to right, if it goes down, that means negative. You would have to put the negative in there then. A horizontal line is 0 slope, and then a vertical line is undefined slope. Anytime you forget those last two, pick a couple ordered pairs. It doesn't matter what they are as long as they're on that same line. So with the undefined slope, the x's would be the same. With the 0 slope, the y's would be the same, and then it would cancel the other way. So you can always use 2 ordered pairs, and you can always figure these out even if you have forgotten. So positive up, negative down, 0 is horizontal, undefined vertical. Okay, so here we have a couple of forms of linear equations. So in your notes as well, put slope-intercept form. That's this one. Point-slope form is this one. you can put what those things stand for. These are also on the formula sheet. The only thing that isn't is m equals slope, b equals y-intercept. That you would have to know. The point on the next one wouldn't be given, and the m would not be given either. So you have to know what the letters stand for. You have to know when to use which one. So we're going to do a variety of different examples just to show you which one is best in which scenario. Did you guys use point slope form in Algebra 1? Okay. That one I think is the easiest one to use just because it kind of tells you what you have. Slope intercept tells you what you have too, but I feel like you can always put something into that form. It's not always the best one to use. So I'll show you that here in a minute too. So slope intercept form, y equals mx plus b. The m stands for the slope. The b stands for where it crosses the y-axis or the y-intercept. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. The point that you're given would be those variables that have the ones with them, where the m would be the slope once again. Okay, so problem 2, graphing lines. What is the graph of y equals 2/3 x plus 1? So this one is in slope-intercept form. If you can figure out which form it is, that will tell you what you have in that form. So with this one, we have the slope. What is the slope in that line? Is it the 2/3 part or the 1?
2/3.
Okay, so my m is 2/3. That would mean my b must be 1, and my b is where does it cross the y-axis? So this one, remember, is your y-intercept. You always want to do this one first. Okay, so where does it cross the y-axis? So it's always the vertical. You will never go across on the x-axis to do this one if it's in this form. So on the vertical axis, it crosses at 1. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to put a dot. From that point, you count the slope. Remember with slope, this is your rise. This is your run. If the rise is a positive number, it goes up. If it's a negative number, it goes down. If the run is a positive number, it goes right. If it's negative, it goes left. Now, the negative can be in any 3 spaces, but it can only be in there once, okay? So I'm going to show you with a negative here in a minute. But if you had, for instance, negative 2/3, you could put the negative with the top number. That would mean down 2. You could put the negative with the bottom number, which means left 3. But you can't put that negative in both places. It doesn't mean that the negative goes everywhere. The other place would be just at the beginning like that. So it doesn't really look like it goes anywhere. You have to actually physically pick one for it to go with. I always pick the top number. So for me, when I graph, I either go up and to the right or down and to the right. I do not go to the left at all unless I'm out of graph paper. And it's a weird point that I just can't make fit. Okay, so pick a space for those negatives to go. And only do it once. So we don't have a negative in this one, so we don't have to worry. So this one means it's going to go up 2 and right 3. You only put the dot at the very last spot. And it always goes from the point that you chose initially. So this would be a positive 2. This would be a positive 3. And you're going to, if you don't have a ruler, do more points. Okay, if you do have a ruler, you can just draw it in with 2. So I don't have a ruler and it never works because it drags everything. I'm going to go up 2 and right 3 again a couple times. And I'm going to go down 2 and left 3. a couple times as well. So it looks like that. So no more XY tables. We don't like to do those. It's very easy to make a mistake that way. The biggest mistake that I see people making is they put this point on there first, which normally most people get right, and then they want to drop down to 0, 0. And what happens is if you do that, it changes the equation. It's not the same as it was before. You use that point and you have to use only information that's in that equation. So you only need 2 points, but if you don't have a ruler, make more. Okay, so what do we do when we have a point slope form? How do we do that? With this one, my point slope form tells me what I need or what I have. So what is the slope in this one? Is it a -3, a -2, or a +3? And here's what it looked like before. It's the -2 part. So my point is x1, y1. My slope is the m part. So my slope this time is my -2. And my point is what? This is the hardest part about this one.
3, -3.
Okay, so 3, -3. Let's see if that's right. Okay, in my formula, this right here is negative. What do I do if it's the opposite? It's like a -3, right? So you have to picture in there that that part is the opposite of what it is. So the only change I'm going to make is that I need this to, actually I'm going to make 2, the signs of both of them. My 3 needs to be negative. In the formula right here, this is negative and so is this. And that means that you get a +3 there. So what did I do to both of those? I changed the signs of whatever they were, right? It's supposed to be negative. So if it isn't, it's like a -3. And that's why you choose a -3. So then we put it on here. Now the thing with this one that makes people a little bit confused is that on the other one, we always have a point that's on the y-axis. Here you probably won't, because we have a point that's going to be somewhere else and we're going to do the slope from that point. So -3, +3 is right here. I'm going to do my slope from that point. My slope says put a 1 under it if there isn't a number. What's my -2 stand for? Left, right, up, or down? Yep, it's down because the rise means down 2. And the run means right 1. If there isn't one, you put a 1 under it. Okay, so my point is right here. And again, I don't have a ruler, so I'm going to do a couple more. I'm going to go down to right 1 a couple times and up to left 1. So you do the opposite. Okay, so if there's no number on the bottom, it's a 1. And that would go with your run number. Notice how the negative, I kept it with that top number, and it just says instead of going up 2, I'm going to go down 2. Now, what if you put the negative with the bottom number? Then it looks like this. Would you get exactly the same thing? Yes, so here's the point I started with. And if you do the other way, here's what happens. You're going to go up 2, and what does that bottom number tell you? Left 1. And you'd still get a point that we already had on our graph. So it works either way. I like my negative on the top. Some people like to do the negative with the bottom number. It doesn't really matter as long as you go that direction. So either way, you do get 2 points that are on the graph. It doesn't matter, you know, what it is. What else do I want to tell you about that? What if you have a graph something like this? So this one I'm just completely making up. Let's say that you put the graph paper on your paper, you counted, and you have something like this. And let's say my slope is -7/2. Can you go down 7 when you don't have any graph paper left? No, you can't. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it so my 7 is positive and my 2 is negative. That's all I'm going to do. So instead of having the negative on the top, I'm going to put it with the bottom. And that tells me that I'm going to go up 7, which I do have room for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then left 2. So I don't have room for a down 7, right 2, but I do have room for an up 7, left 2. And then I would do it twice just so I could find the whole thing. So if you ever run into that you put your graph paper on there, you have everything drawn out, but you just don't have room, do the opposite. So switch that negative the other way. Do the opposite of both numbers and you should be good to go. So this then you would have room for. Okay, so grab some graph paper. Okay, so for the first one, we get y equals 3x minus 4. What is the slope of this line?
3x.
And it's just the 3. When there's no number, what do I do?
Put it over 1.
Put it over 1. And then the y-intercept, or the b part, is what number?
Negative 4.
-4. So we're going to do the b part first. So the b part is always your first part that you put on your graph. Is it a -4 on the x-axis or a -4 on the y-axis? Always the vertical one. So you're always going to do that. So it's -4, which means down 4 on the y. It's not changing color for me, so I'll just keep it the way it is. Okay, maybe it will now. And then my slope is 3 over 1. So what does that mean? What's the top number mean?
Up 3.
So this is up 3, and the 1 is
Right 1.
right 1. So I'm going to go up 3 from this point that I just did. So I'm going to go up 3, right 1. So if you have a ruler, you really only need those 2 points. If you don't, do a few more. From this one, instead of going up 3, I'm going to go down 3 and left 1. So I'm just going to do opposite. And I'm going to go up 3 and right 1 a couple of times. Now remember that positive slope does go up. Does our line go up from the left?
Yeah.
Yep, so it looks like we probably are good. Okay, I'm going to go up and see if it'll let me change color now. Maybe, I don't know. 2, nope. Okay, now since I'm going to do 2 on the same one, I'm going to put a 1 with a circle around it, right by that first one. Now, if you have different colors, like different colored pens, like some people have, you can certainly do them in different colors than they stand out, but I'd still want you to number them anyway. Now, the second one is in point slope form. So we have y minus 2, -1/3, x minus 4. So the easiest part on this one is the slope. What is that? -1/3. The hardest part is getting the point right. Okay, so I need an ordered pair. So when we talked about this before, in the formula, there is subtraction symbols, right? They're both subtraction symbols right here. But the thing is you just pull out the number then. So what I do when I'm doing this one is I think about the -2 on the left, I change it. I'm thinking about a -4 on the right, I'm changing it. So I'm actually changing the signs regardless of what they are. And so you have to make sure you do the x one first. So a -4 changes to a +4, and a -2 changes to a +2. So regardless of what the numbers are, change the sign of both of them. Just make sure you put the x1 first. So on this one, my point is 4, 2. So I'm going to go there first. So I go right 4, up 2. And then from there, I go down 1, right 3. So this one means down 1. The 3 means right 3. So down 1, right 3. And since I don't have a ruler, I'm going to go up 1, left 3, a couple of times. And there I would put a 2 with a circle around it. I would allow you up to 3 lines on one graph paper. Okay, so if we had another one, we could put another one on there. We could do 3 different colors. We could do all in the same color. Just make sure you number them regardless. If you use the little squares, go ahead and just do 1 on each graph. It doesn't matter to me what you do.
Can you go over that one again?
Yep, I sure will. And I wish my pen would change color. I'm going to actually stop. So now let's use it. Sometimes you have all the information that you need to just write it into an equation. So for part A, what's an equation of the line with slope 3 and y-intercept -5? Well, you got to think about what you have. So we have the slope and we have the b. Which equation does that fit best? Slope-intercept form. So we're going to put it in this one. So I'm going to just insert my m, which is 3, and I'm going to insert my b, which is -5. Now, when it's given to you just like that, you don't have to show anything else. You just get to the equation and you're done. So my slope I plugged in for the m. Don't forget about the x, because then it looks like you have 2 numbers. You'd have a 3 minus 5, and that would be a -2, and that's not the same thing. So make sure you put the x with it. The intercept is the b part. It's like a positive -5 or add -5, which changes the sign to negative. What about the next one? We have a point and a slope. So wouldn't we use point-slope form? So look at what you have. So we have a point, and we have our m. That tells us we're going to put it into this form. So where does the m go? In for the m, right? So I'm going to put it in there as a 2. Now, the trick is this. Would it look funny if I plugged it in for the xy where I had x1, y1 left? It would look funny, right? So always plug in for the sub-numbered things to leave the other ones there. So here's my x1. Here's my y1. Oops, that looks like an x. Here's my y1. So it's going to be an x minus a -1 and a y minus 5. So this is that one where those signs really kind of are a big deal. You're always subtracting within the formula. You put whatever number they have. So what's a minus minus 1? Plus 1. So this would simplify like this. So with the 5, you just substitute it in. There was already a subtraction symbol there. With the x part, there's already a subtraction symbol, but you're plugging in a negative number. So that changes the sign of it. So it would return to a plus 1. Now remember, let's do that other one in reverse now. So let's say we started out like this. What would the point be? My slope would be 2, which it was. My point would be the opposite of the x and the opposite of the y. So the opposite of a positive 1 is -1. Opposite of -5 would be positive 5. And notice that that does match that ordered pair that we started with. So that's kind of how that equation works. Change the sign of the ordered pair only.
So when you graph that one, you're going to put your first point at -1,5.
Yep. And then you would do 2 over 1. So you'd go up to right 1. You'd always put a 1 underneath it if you had to. Yep. Most of the time they're either graphing or doing equations. You don't usually have to do both. So let's try these two on your own quick. Okay, so for part A, my slope is m equals -1/2. The y-intercept is 2. That's my b part. And I'm going to plug it into this equation. Now, you don't always have to write that. I'm just kind of doing that so you can see what I'm doing. So the -1/2 goes in for m. And the b goes in for b. The 2 goes in for b. That's it. So if you could just write that, given that information, just write it. There's not really much you can show other than that you just plugged them in. So second one, I have a point and a slope, so we're using a different equation for this one. So where does the negative 3 go? What letter? Where does this go?
The slope, or that's the M.
That's the M part. So I'm going to put a negative 3 in there. Now, when I plug my point in, does it go for the xy or the x1, y1? X1, y1. So which one is which? Where does the negative 1 go? X1. Now, it's negative, so I'm subtracting a negative 1, which changes the sign to positive 1. For the 4, do I have to change the sign? It's like a subtract 4. So it's positive 4 up there. In my equation, it's minus 4. And that's the equation. So unless it tells you you need an equation in slope-intercept form, don't do anything with it. Just leave it. There's actually 2, if not 3 equations that you can write for every single equation that we have. The only one we haven't learned about is standard form, which isn't a common one. It isn't super useful, especially with the things that we're looking at. Last one is the hardest one. I would recommend maybe writing this down using 2 points to write an equation. So this one is the graph, and we're actually going to use the graph to find the slope and everything. And then we'll write an equation from there. So I'll kind of show you a couple different ways to do this one. Okay, so my ordered pairs are 3, 5, 2, -2, -1. So the first thing I'm going to do is find out what the slope is, and since it's already graphed, I'm going to use that. Now, make sure when you draw this triangle there that it hits this 3, 5, and it also hits the -2, -1. You can't go beyond it because that changes the slope. So I'm going to count the squares of the vertical. I'm going to count the squares of the horizontal. So I'm going to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Be careful because sometimes the book will go by 2s. This one is really only going by 1s, but if it goes by 2s, we would go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So be careful because they do that every once in a while. Since the y's are also 1s, I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's my slope? Is it 5 over 6 or 6 over 5? 6 over 5 because 6 is the rise, 5 is the run. So my slope is 6 over 5. Is it positive 6 over 5 or negative when it goes up to the right? What? Positive. So up to the right means positive. So my slope is good to go right there. Secondly, when I look at the y-intercept, it's like right here, right? You can kind of see that tiny little green dot that I have on there. I don't know for sure what that is. So I can't just go, well, I think I'm going to use a 1.3 or a 1.2 because maybe it's 1.25. We don't know what it is. So unless it goes through a point exactly, you can't do that. You can't just say, I'm going to guess at what this is. So we need a point that goes with it. I can choose the 3, 5. I can choose the -2, -1. Most of you will probably do the positive ones, but it doesn't really matter. You can use either point. Now we have point slope. We can put it into point slope form. So it looks like this. Y minus 5 equals 6 over 5 times x minus 3. Now, 6 over 5 on your calculators, like if you actually would calculate that, it would shoot you a 1 1/5. Slope is always a improper fraction or a regular fraction. It's never a mixed number. So change it on your calculator. Use your second fraction key to change it into an improper fraction if you have to use your calculator. You shouldn't when you're just counting, but don't put slope as a mixed number. Secondly, what if you use the other number? It would look different, and the bell's going to ring in just a second, but it would look like this. Y plus 1 equals 6 over 5 times x plus 2. Would it be wrong if you use the other one? Nope. Gives you exactly the same thing. So tomorrow what we're going to do is we're going to go through the last problem, but you guys don't have anything else to do except for corrections, and that's it.